This is The Weekender with Chrissy Morrissy on 6PR, the voice of Perth.
Well, many people insist there's a winning formula for investing in property, and my next guest on the show reckons she knows exactly what it is. If you want to crack into Perth's property hot spots, keep listening to The Weekender. And just going back to our discussion about congestion on roads following a crash, if you're stuck in traffic and wondering why on the Kwinana Freeway, there's been a crash on the Kwinana Freeway northbound. The right lane is blocked 200 metres north of Russell Road in Success. Emergency crews are on the site. Clean-up crews should be there now, and if you are going past and you're slowing down, have a look and see if that technology is actually in use. Give us a yell, 922 111 882. Well, imagine if you could lay your hands on the property equivalent of the sports almanac from the movie Back to the Future. If you knew for sure that if two-bedroom apartment or a block of land in the sticks is actually going to make you some money, where are the real estate hotspots in Perth? Where will we get the best return for your investment dollar? Imagine if you knew the answers. Well, my next guest may not ride around in the DeLorean, but she's reported to have more than a touch of PropertyESP. Property commentator Sam Reece has a passion for real estate and is the go-to expert for developers, investors, even financial institutions like Bankwest when it comes to advising on areas of real estate opportunity in the metro area. And today, she's all ours, and she's going to reveal the one common factor our city's property hotspots have in common. And if you have a question about where to invest, jump on the phones pretty quickly, 922 111 882. And while you're dialing, let me welcome Sam to The Weekender. Sam, hello.
Hello, Chrissy.
Hi. Now, how long have you been studying the data and trends around property?
So I've been involved in property now for 20 years. 12 of those I actually ran my own marketing company and advised clients on how we should market their projects. But more recently, in the last 2 years, started PropertyESP with my JV partner, Beth Dungy. And so we have been looking at what's been happening in property over the long term, so over a 10 to 20 year period in some instances, and especially around certain hotspots like you've alluded to.
So what is the data revealing, that long-term data revealing about current hotspots in Perth?
So I can tell you there's a lot of opportunities at the market at the moment. We have been very fortunate because a lot of infrastructure is now kicking into play. And so what we're actually seeing is suburbs such as Canning, Fremantle, Canning Bridge, Murdoch, Scarborough. You know, these are all becoming really good hotspots for property investment because we're actually seeing a change occurring.
So what's the one thing then, Sam, that they all have in common, those hotspots?
So infrastructure. So, you know, the stadium, Northbridge Link, Elizabeth Quay, hospitals, train stations such as Auburn Grove. So what you've got is that kind of infrastructure which will basically take your property up and above the norm simply because the fact it actually generates good fortune and good amenity.
So places where there's some major building going on, you mean a big infrastructure project?
And an asset. So in the long term will be a real draw card. Yeah.
Okay. Can you give us an example, a good example of where a major infrastructure project is really, I suppose in the past, turned a real estate investment into nest egg gold?
So we looked at the Fiona Stanley Hospital from the time when it was actually announced, from 2003, right through to the time when it was finished construction in 2015. And what we saw was that you could buy into the local area, 5 suburbs around that hospital in 2003 for about $300,000. By the time it was finished and built, you were actually selling around about the $790,000, $800,000 mark.
Wish I'd got on that one.
So do I. It's very hard not having all the money I need, I tell you, Chrissy.
Oh, it'd be awful for you because you can see it and you're not accessing it. So you mentioned Scarborough. Is Scarborough's spot your hotspot list directly aligned to all that development that's going on down on the beach side? Because it's certainly annoying people that have businesses there.
No pain, no gain, unfortunately. So listen, you've got to be really hanging in there because once that redevelopment's finished, Scarborough will not look the same as it did last year, which is great because that area has so needed to have some revitalisation. We looked at Canberra. And if you bought an apartment in 2011, by 2016, a 3-bedroom apartment had actually achieved 28% capital growth. So, the thing is that where there's infrastructure, there is good opportunity. But of course that, started kicking up back in 2011 when there was plans. And like the World Trade Centre, for example, that's proposed for Northbridge, that's been on the drawing cards for 3 years. We've only heard about it now because now it's becoming a reality. So, if you were in the know 3 years ago, which some people who happened to just buy Northbridge were, hanging there for that Twin Tower, the World Trade Centre.
Now, suburbs like that and Scarborough, they're not new suburbs, are they? Are we talking more about apartment-style investments? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, so what we're actually seeing is, of course, in the last state government, there's been a real push for infill. And so we're seeing, for example, in Canning, around the train stations are incredibly fortuitous when you're looking at investment. They've just announced, of course, that Carousel's doing their 50,000 square metre expansion. So when you have that kind of creation occurring, it's fantastic for, property developers and also for people who are in the know. So the fact is, at the moment, you certainly can look at those suburbs. Canning Bridge is another one where, they've been very outdated for some time now. And, with that revitalisation, we're going to see a whole different suburb emerge.
So we're talking about hotspots today, what are hotspots today, but you kind of alluded with that Northbridge one that timing really is everything in life.
Oh gosh, yes.
So how do you find out then? How do you make the research yourself as a potential property investor?
Well, you have to. So we actually blog each week, and our blogs are on our website. So you can always go to our website and we give that information freely. But the fact is you do need to do your homework and you do need to drill down, because you'll hear Rewa talking about the last quarter. They'll talk about overall market increase in terms of property values. But what they're not looking at is individual elements within that market. So whether it's house or duplex or units or apartments, and they all have their own patterns. So, yes, certainly having the right knowledge. But, everyone's been saying it's a buyer's market. There are still people thinking, I'm going to wait. And data we have demonstrates that if you just even wait 18 months, sometimes you can miss out on a whopping amount of capital growth just because you were waiting. And then, nobody else to blame but yourself at that point.
Story of my life, that one. That is the story of my life. I remember we left Perth and we went and lived out in Kalgoorlie in the sticks thinking, we'll go out, we'll make a bit of money and we'll come back and we'll buy the property of our dreams. And I'll give you the example of Floreat. We were one of the areas that we were looking at. When we left Perth, they were around 400,000. And when we came back, same properties were around 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Was it really? Why did we spend that time
coastal. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure you had a lovely time.
Fabulous. But if I'd have had you online earlier, it would have been much more heavy. So let's talk about some of the suburbs that are in those embryonic stages of revitalisation that you think are going to make a big return in the future. Give us some insights.
All right. So definitely around Canning with that Carousel expansion, and some of the apartments that are coming onto the market there are like $350 for a one-bedroom. Really affordable. And I would say Murdoch, because, they're talking about that whole hospital precinct. Now, I remember being in Midland 10 years ago and Kieran Kinsella talking about the dream, and all there was a bit of stick kind of, artwork on the street. And I was thinking, I hope this comes to fruition. And just recently I was in Midland and it looked like a mini Subiaco. And I could not believe my eyes. So, that's when I wish I had bought in Midland 10 years ago. So, where there's precinct planning, which means that a whole precinct is going to be invigorated to actually support a main catalyst such as a hospital, you just got to rub your hands with glee. There is no doubt.
How long do you expect to carry an investment, though?
Oh, listen, if you really, I saw Hayden Groves the other day from Rewa speaking, and he was saying properties won't double in value every 7 years like they used to. I tend to argue against that because our data shows that if you buy in the right location, yes, they will. Property is my preferred investment. I hate shares. I hate dialing in every day and seeing that price fluctuating. It makes me anxious. I've always done well with property. But you have to be patient. So when you buy a property investment, you have to think to yourself a 7 to 10 year window, and then you really will maximise your returns. But never buy when people say the market is hot. dangerous. That is dangerous.
Oh, so I should be avoiding the hotspots right now. Is that what you're
Buy
saying?
when everyone says that the market is a buyer's market, and sell when everyone's saying that the market is hot, because that will when you get your premium price point. And we saw some properties now, we looked at the western suburbs. If you bought below $1 million and you renovated, you made 21% capital growth. If you bought over $3.5 million, there was 50% chance you would make a loss when you resold. So you have to be really mindful about what you're buying, why you're buying it. If it's your dream home, then don't expect to actually, if it's an expensive home, to make a large profit on it. It's your dream home. If you're buying to be savvy, buy the worst house in the best street, near infrastructure, and sit tight, and you will do well.
Do you have a roughie at the moment, Sam?
What does that mean?
You're roughie, you're an outsider?
An outsider.
Yeah.
I think Canning Bridge, people still haven't quite realised that that's going to go off. And, there's a lot of development that's poised for that, and some really, really inexpensive product as well in terms of 3-bedroom, apartments in the 900s. So I know you say that's expensive, but people paid $1 million for a 1-bedroom at Elizabeth Quay.
Oh, good grief. Yep.
Right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sam, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. It was great fun. Thanks.
Property commentator and director of PropertyESP, Sam Reece, talking investment hotspots around our suburbs. She's in great demand. In fact, she's delivering a series of presentations in March. That's next month, about the key areas of Perth Prime for investment for Bankwest. But we've had a bit of a sneak peek here, haven't we, on the weekend? And next week, Sam's going to be back to talk about the rise of apartment living in Perth. Suburban eyesores, or are they clever urban planning? That's our topic when Sam Reece joins us next weekend. You're listening to 8 to 82 6PR, coming out to 4:30. We're going to go travelling in just a little while.